All right, guys, so another video about the tyranny that's going on in Canada, right north of the border. And I'm gonna tell you guys, every single day that I read more news about what's going on over there, man, it's almost like unbelievable. Okay, it really is. I feel like we're living in a similar time to what was happening during the Summer of Love, right? Except we're not seeing violent protests everywhere, or people destroying property and looting stuff and all that stuff. No, we're not seeing that. It's almost like we're just witnessing a Western government, okay, slowly beating its citizens into submission that are peacefully protesting. I mean, a overwhelmingly peaceful protest, and I mean that in the truest sense. Okay, the mainstream liberal media tried to flag this as violent, right, and say this was violent stuff, but they haven't been able to produce any evidence, right? They haven't been able to produce any evidence. Okay, again, unlike the Summer of Love, where it's not hard to find evidence of violence that happened then. Okay, but you would think that that's what they was doing, considering how these people are being treated. And it's crazy because as an American, right, and living in a Western country, they tell you that, hey, this stuff only happens in places like, Iraq, Afghanistan, some random countries in Africa, right? It only happens there. But we're literally witnessing this stuff happening in our own backyard, right? Which is a testament to how power hungry a lot of these governments have gotten during this pandemic. And Canada is showing you how power hungry they are. Led by their dictator, Justin Trudeau, whom admires China, by the way. He admires China, and he has the opportunity to now be like Xi Jinping, okay, and rule with an iron fist. That's what he's essentially trying to do. When he enacted the emergency powers that, in my opinion, was a declaration of financial warfare, not just against the freedom truckers, but also against the people that donate to them and the platforms and intermediaries use to facilitate funds going to the truckers. So that's what I want to talk about today. But before we get in that, I just want to let you guys know, if you like my channel, if you like what I do, and you want to support my channel, feel free to do so using the links in the description below. You can support the Patreon, you can support the PayPal, you can support the merch. There are multiple ways to support the channel if you would like to do so. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this clip of a Canadian official chuckling, right, laughing, okay, thinking this is a game, when asked about Justin Trudeau's use of his emergency powers, specifically Canada's terrorist financing policy, which is an attempt by the Canadian government to freeze the financial assets of the freedom truckers and those who are supporting them. Take a look.
So you're confirming that accounts have been frozen, both personal and corporate, but you're not releasing the information. And the actual follow-up is, I'm just wondering whether the bank accounts will be targeted of individuals who donated to the Give, Send, Go and the GoFundMe campaigns. Are they considered designated people under the Emergencies Act, meaning that their credit cards could be cut and financial services are targeting them as well?
Okay, so the names of both individuals and entities, as well as crypto wallets, have been shared by the RCMP with financial institutions, and accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen. Crowdfunding platforms and payment service providers have started the registration process with FinTrack. In terms of the specifics on whose accounts are being frozen, you now have the regulations. The financial service providers have those regulations as well, and they, working with law enforcement, will be making the operational decisions.
All right, guys, so you heard that little chuckle right at the beginning when she was being asked that question. Yeah, of course we froze the assets, right? Of course we did that, okay? As if that's perfectly normal, right? Perfectly acceptable stuff, as if this is the type of stuff that they told us, right, that only happens in third world countries, right? Only our enemies do this, okay, to their people, right? Incredible stuff. Guys, could you imagine, right? Could you imagine if Trump said, hey, you know what? These people, right, BLM, Antifa, they're violent, right? You see all the protests, riots going on across the country. Okay, they burning down stuff, they looting stores. Somebody is financing this. Okay, and we have to freeze their assets, right? We have to stop people from donating to, these bail funds that are bailing criminals out of jail. The same bail funds that woke Hollywood celebrities like, Kerry Washington and Gabrielle Union, Lynn, Manuel Miranda, the bail fund that these people donated to, okay? The same bail fund that essentially bailed out a failed would-be assassin, okay? If Trump said, I'm freezing the assets of BLM, right, the organization, anybody associated with the movement, and anybody that has donated to the movement, right? But these people would have lost their mind. They would have been crying fascism all day long, okay? We would never hear the end of it, right? I think there probably would have been civil war, right, if Trump was to do something like that, okay? And I've told you guys this before. It's funny because everything that the Democrat Party has tried to do here in America, Biden tried to do here in America, right, along with what's going on in Canada, is everything that they tried to tell us that Trump was, right? And I say this time and time again. I know Trump is not a fascist. You know how I know Trump is not a fascist? Is because if he actually was a power-hungry fascist, the time to do it, to take that power was during the pandemic, right? That is the time, right? If there was a time in this country where if somebody wanted to be a dictator, they could actually be a dictator, it would have been during the pandemic, right? You could have used the pandemic as an excuse to do that. The fact is that the only people that have used the pandemic as an excuse to try to be a dictator is Joe Biden, Justin Trudeau, whoever's running Australia, right? And whoever's running all these other countries that have used the pandemic as a way to take power, okay? Those are your real fascists, okay? That have revealed themselves, right? That's what's happening here. However, right, because we are living in the 21st century, freezing somebody's financial assets is not as easy as just saying, hey, we're going to freeze your bank accounts, right? Hey, we're not going to let you donate to this platform, or we're going to freeze the funds on this platform or whatever, right? Because there's a new type of money out there, okay? And that new type of money is crypto, right? Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of it, and I'm pretty sure that conservatives are probably going to be a whole lot more interested in cryptocurrency because of what's happening in Canada. That may be one good thing that comes out of this, is people understanding the importance of decentralized finance, okay? And this is a topic that you guys, one of you guys asked me to cover and to talk about. As a crypto software provider, is telling the Canadian government to kick rocks when it comes to orders to freeze cryptocurrency assets, right? To freeze Bitcoin. So some of you out there are probably wondering how this works, right? How is this company able to say no to the Canadian government? Okay, and I'm going to explain that to you in the simplest way I can, because I did work in the financial services industry, so I kind of understand a little bit about how this stuff works, okay? So we're going to read this letter that they sent to the Canadian government, basically telling them to F off, right? Dear the Ontario Superior Court of Justice, Nunchuk is a self-custodial, collaborative, multi-sig Bitcoin wallet. We are a software provider, not a custodial financial intermediary. All right, so let me explain this. A custodial financial intermediary, it basically just means an entity that is responsible for holding and safeguarding your money, right? So banks are known as custodians, right? Or any type of financial institution like a brokerage account or something like that. They're known as custodians, which simply means that they are responsible for your money, okay? So when you deposit your money in your bank account, right, the bank at that point now has responsibility to safeguard their money, to make sure it's not stolen, there's no fraudulent activity, things like that, okay? And there's all types of regulations that goes along with being a financial custodian, okay? So with that being said, the custodian does have access to your money, right? Banks actually are always using your money to give out loans and stuff like that as well too. So they have access to your money, right? And they're regulated by the government, which means that if the government says, hey, you have to freeze somebody's assets, then the banks will do that, right? They will do that, okay? It's the same reason why the IRS can garnish money out of your bank account. They can just take it, okay? Because these banks are ultimately regulated by the government, and they do have access to your money, okay? So with that being said, this software provider is not that, right? They don't actually have access to the wallets that their software provides for users to store their crypto, okay? Because these wallets, the only way to get access to them are with private keys. This software provider actually does not have access to those keys. Right now, the software that they use creates the keys in the wallet for people to put their crypto in, but the software provider themselves doesn't have access to it. So that is why they're telling the Canadian government, hey, y'all can kick rocks, okay? And this is where the whole decentralized thing kind of comes in, right? Where there's no central entity that actually controls the money, right? Like we have here in the United States, we have the Federal Reserve. They control the money. And this is why the government is currently debating so hard about how to regulate crypto, because they simply don't have control over it, right? And financial assets that they don't have control over, that they just can't freeze or take any type of way, that's a very, very, very difficult problem for the government to deal with, okay? So again, this is why the government is trying so hard to regulate crypto and to figure out how to regulate it. But a lot of these people really don't even understand how it works. Okay. So there's one good thing about having old people, a ton of old people in government. They don't really know what's going on. Okay. So a topic like crypto, it's going to go over their heads and it's going to take them forever to figure out how to regulate it, because quite honestly, they just can't understand it. Right. And as you can see here, Canada clearly doesn't know how crypto works, or at the very least, they don't know how a private wallet works. Okay. So let's read more here. Our software is free to use. It allows people to eliminate single points of failure and store Bitcoin in the safest way possible while preserving privacy. Basically, I think the way Nunchuk software work is that they give you like 2 private keys or something like that instead of just one. Okay, so that even if you lose one of them, you can still get access to your stuff. Because a lot of people will lose access to their wallets if you lose your private key, right? And if you lose your private key because the software provider doesn't have it and they can't make another one, yeah, you're done. You just lose access to your Bitcoin. And so that is the risk of being a self-custodian, right? Which is what that's called, is that, hey, if you lose your money, you lose your money. Again, it's the same thing as like losing physical money out on the street, right? If the money falls out of your wallet, right, or you lose your wallet in the street, or you lose access to your wallet or whatever, then you're just screwed, right? You can't really get it back, okay? But again, if it was a bank or whatever, right, then a bank, you know, let's say you were the victim of fraud or something like that, banks can actually go and get that money back in some cases. Now, again, this applies to people holding money in private wallets, right? They're holding their Bitcoin in private wallets. Now, if you're holding your Bitcoin on like an exchange, then that's a different story, okay? Because, you know, if that exchange operates in the country that is saying, hey, we want to freeze access to these funds or these assets, then that exchange will have to comply with the government at that point, right? Or they will be compelled to comply with the government at that point, okay? Because an exchange is centralized. And an exchange at that point, because you're holding your money on an exchange, could say, hey, we're not going to let you, you know, have access to these funds, right? We're not going to let you convert these funds into, you know, fiat or whatever, right? And that is going to present an issue, right? Because even though the Canadian government can't actually freeze people's Bitcoin or their crypto in their private wallets or whatever, right? What they can do is tell these exchanges that operate within their country that, hey, you know what? You can't allow these people to convert their money back into, you know, US dollars or Canadian dollars, right? So that is one issue that they will face, even though, again, Canada can't necessarily freeze access to Bitcoin because there's not widespread use of being able to purchase things with Bitcoin yet. It's going to be hard to actually convert that Bitcoin back into US dollars or Canadian dollars in order to actually be able to use those funds. Okay, so that is going to be an issue, right? But again, there could be workarounds, right? I'm pretty sure there are workarounds. Okay, and this isn't financial advice. This is just me explaining how this stuff works, right? Just so that you guys kind of understand what's going on here. We do not collect any user identification information beyond email addresses. We also do not hold any keys. Therefore, we cannot freeze our users' assets. We cannot prevent them from being moved. We don't have knowledge of the existence, nature, value, and location of our users' assets. This is by design. Please look up how self-custody and private keys work. When the Canadian dollar becomes worthless, we will be here to serve you too. Sincerely, the Nunchuk team. That's like the kindest way of telling the government to F off, right? I love it. I mean, that is supposed to be the point of crypto, right? It's supposed to be decentralized and that's exactly what they're supposed to say when the government comes knocking. Hey, you know what? Ain't nothing we can do. We just create software, bro. Right? We just create software. But with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some backlash from the left, right? Similar to what we've seen with Give, Send, Go, right? In which you had a hacker basically go after Give, Send, Go for facilitating helping these truckers get access to donations, right? But, you know, hacking Nunchuk isn't really going to do much for them, except maybe they might stop Nunchuk from being able to create private wallets. Who knows, right? But it ain't going to actually stop people from getting access to their Bitcoin, right? So I think that the silver lining here, if there is one, is that there's going to be a whole lot more interest in crypto because of what the Canadian government is doing. And, you know, people saying that, hey, you know, we never thought that this could actually happen or would happen in the Western world, but it actually is, right? And because we're seeing this happen in real life, we're witnessing history, a lot more people are going to be thinking long and hard about where they're holding their money, right? And Bitcoin has been, you know, branded as digital gold. So who knows? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.